Hello friends, welcome to Read Great Minds. Today's audiobook summary is The Brain Science of Self-Sabotage. If you've ever set a goal, made a plan, and still ended up stuck, this is for you. Because what looks like laziness is often something deeper, something neurological. Before we begin, please like this video, share with your family and friends, and most important, don't forget to subscribe to the channel Read Great Minds. Let's begin. You set the goal. You made the plan. You even felt that spark of motivation. But somehow, you ended up right back where you started again. This is the invisible war you fight every day. Not against the world, not against your circumstances, but against a part of your own mind that seems determined to keep you exactly where you are. You promise yourself you'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow becomes next week. You commit to change, but when the moment comes, something inside you pulls the emergency brake. You watch others move forward while you stay stuck. Not because you lack ambition, but because some hidden force keeps sabotaging every step you take. Most people never win this war because they never realize they're fighting the wrong enemy. They blame laziness. They call it lack of discipline. They tell themselves they're just not strong enough. But the truth is far more specific and far more dangerous. Your brain was designed by evolution to keep you safe, not to make you successful. And that ancient survival system is hijacking your best intentions before you even have a chance to act on them. Every time you decide to work on your future, your brain's threat detection system kicks in. It treats uncertainty like a predator. It treats effort like a waste of precious energy. It treats growth as a risk to your survival. And before you know it, you're on the couch instead of at the gym. Scrolling instead of building, waiting instead of creating. This isn't a character flaw. This is biology working exactly as it was designed to work. The war you're fighting isn't moral. It's neurological. You don't need more willpower. You need to understand the brain patterns that hold you back. You don't need another motivational speech. You need a manual for your own mind. Because once you see how the system works, you can stop working against yourself and start working with the brain you actually have. Today could be the day everything changes. Today could be the day you finally understand why you sabotage yourself and learn how to stop it. Not through force, not through guilt, but through understanding the science and applying the solution. Stay with me, because this might be the most important shift you ever make. Chapter 1 begins now. Chapter 1. Your brain is not your enemy, but it is not your friend either. You promised yourself you'd start Monday. It's Thursday, and you're scrolling again. You think you're lazy. You think you lack discipline. You think you're just not the kind of person who follows through. But what if you're wrong about all of it? What if the problem isn't your character, but a system inside your mind that was built to keep you exactly where you are? Most people go their entire lives believing they need to fight harder. They buy planners. They set alarms. They write affirmations on their bathroom mirrors. And when none of it works, they conclude they're broken. They decide they're just not cut out for success. They accept the story that some people have it, and some people don't. And they happen to be the ones who don't. But that story is a lie, and it's costing you everything. The real reason you sabotage yourself has nothing to do with willpower, and everything to do with wiring. Your brain runs two operating systems simultaneously, and they want opposite things. One system wants growth, progress, and long-term rewards. The other wants safety, comfort, and immediate relief. The problem isn't that you're weak. The problem is that the safety system is faster, louder, and far more practiced at winning. Think about what happens when you sit down to work on something important. For the first few minutes, you feel focused. You open the document. You start typing. Then something shifts. A feeling creeps in. It's not a thought at first. It's a sensation. Restlessness. A slight tension in your chest. A whisper that says, "This is harder than it should be." And suddenly, without any conscious decision, you're checking your phone, or opening a new tab, or getting up for a snack you don't need. That wasn't a random impulse. That was your survival system detecting discomfort and interpreting it as danger. Your brain equates uncertainty with risk. It equates effort with wasted energy. It equates growth with potential death. And it responds the same way it would if you stepped into traffic. It pulls you back to safety. The survival system doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your dreams. It doesn't care that you want to build something better for yourself. Its only job is to keep you alive. And in its primitive logic, alive means unchanged. Safe means still. Comfortable means surviving another day. You can't argue with this system. You can't shame it into submission. You can't overpower it with positive thinking or motivational quotes. It's not listening to logic because it was never built to listen. It was built to react. It was built to protect. And it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's what changes everything. You don't need to defeat it. You need to work around it. You need to understand when it's activating and recognize it for what it is. An outdated alarm system that can't tell the difference between building a business and walking into a lion's den. The first step is simple, but it's not easy. You have to start noticing the moment the switch happens. Not after you've already spent an hour on your phone. Not after you've already abandoned the project for the day. You have to catch it in the act. Right now, you probably don't notice the shift because it feels like a natural part of your day. You're working, then you're tired, then you're resting. You're focused, then you're distracted, then you're doing something else. The transition feels seamless because you're not watching for it. But if you pay attention, you'll start to see the pattern. There's always a moment. Maybe it's a slight tightness in your shoulders. Maybe it's a vague sense of boredom that appears out of nowhere. Maybe it's a thought that whispers, "This is too hard, and you should take a break." That moment is the survival system activating. That moment is where the sabotage begins. You don't need to fight it when you notice it. You just need to name it. In that split second, say to yourself, "That's my survival system." Not, "I'm lazy." Not, "I'm weak." Not, "I'll never change." Just, "That's my survival system doing its job." Naming it creates distance. Distance creates choice. And choice creates power. Once you can see the mechanism, you stop taking it personally. You stop believing the story that you're fundamentally flawed. You start to understand that you're not sabotaging yourself because you're broken. You're sabotaging yourself because you're running outdated software that was designed for a world that no longer exists. The man who finally understands this doesn't fight himself anymore. He doesn't spend his energy on self-blame. He watches his own mind like a scientist observing an experiment. He feels the restlessness rise. He recognizes it for what it is. And he makes a different choice. Not because he's stronger, but because he's smarter about how his brain works. He sits down to work, feels the discomfort arrive, and says, "There it is." He picks up his phone out of habit, catches himself, and puts it back down. He starts a task, feels the urge to quit, and reminds himself. The urge is just a signal, not a command. He doesn't win every time, but he wins more often than he used to. And each time he wins, the survival system gets a little quieter. Each time he pushes through the discomfort, the alarm rings a little less loudly. Each time he finishes what he started, the system learns. Discomfort doesn't mean death. This is how you stop working against yourself. Not by becoming a different person, but by becoming the person who understands the person you already are. You don't need to build a new brain. You need to stop letting the old brain run the show without supervision. Your strongest self isn't on the other side of beating yourself into submission. It's on the other side of understanding the part of you that's been beating you down. It's waiting in the space between the urge and the action. It's ready to emerge the moment you stop treating your brain like an enemy and start treating it like a tool that needs better direction. The war isn't over, but now you know who you're fighting, and more importantly, you know how to win. Chapter 2. Protect your focus before your brain hijacks it. You sit down to work. Your phone lights up. 2 hours later, you're exhausted, but not from work. Your focus was hijacked. This is how the war is lost every single day. Not in big failures, not in dramatic collapses, but in 1,000 tiny thefts that happen so smoothly you don't even notice them. Your attention is the most valuable resource you have. And right now, it's being stolen from you, one notification at a time. Most people think they control their attention. They believe they choose what to focus on. But if you actually tracked where your time goes, you'd see a different story. You'd see that your phone gets checked 144 times a day. You'd see that every time you get distracted, it takes 23 minutes to get back in a deep focus. You'd see that by the time evening comes, you've spent 8 hours reacting and almost none creating. This isn't your fault, but it is your problem. Your brain was designed to seek stimulation in a world of scarcity. This kept you alive. It made you notice movement in the bushes. It made you alert to changes in your environment. It made you curious about anything new. But now that instinct is being exploited by a device that fits in your pocket and delivers infinite novelty on demand. Every time you check your phone, you get a tiny hit of anticipation. Maybe this notification will be important. Maybe this message will change everything. Maybe this scroll will reveal something you need to know. That, maybe, is what keeps you hooked. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Variable rewards, unpredictable wins, and the eternal promise that the next pull might be the big one. The survival system in your brain doesn't understand that your phone is infinite. It thinks it found the best hunting ground in history. It thinks every buzz might be a signal worth responding to. And because it was built for a world where information was rare, it treats every ping like a potential threat or opportunity that could mean the difference between survival and death. You can't delete all your apps. You can't throw your phone away. You live in a world that demands connection. But you can make the survival system bored before it gets distracted. You can create so much friction between you and the distraction that your brain decides it's not worth the effort. The first step is the 10-minute rule. When you feel the urge to check your phone, wait 10 minutes. Not forever, not an hour, just 10 minutes. This is long enough for the survival system to lose its edge. The urgency fades. The anticipation drops. The itch becomes manageable. And most importantly, you prove to yourself that you can feel the urge and not obey it. The second step is to redesign your environment. Don't rely on willpower. Willpower is what the survival system eats for breakfast when it's hungry. Instead, make the bad choice harder than the good one. Delete social media apps from your phone and force yourself to use them on your computer. Turn your phone to grayscale so the colorful icons lose their power. Put your phone in another room when you need to focus. Create a gate that requires real effort to open. The third step is the 45-minute timer. Set a timer for 45 minutes of uninterrupted work. Not an hour, not 2 hours. 45 minutes is long enough to accomplish something real, and short enough that your survival system doesn't panic. When the timer starts, your phone is face down in another room, on silent. When the timer ends, you can check it. This creates a predictable structure that calms the ancient part of your brain. It knows there's an end. It knows relief is coming. It can wait. Most people try to fight distraction head-on. They try to be stronger. They try to resist harder. But that's like trying to hold your breath underwater forever. You might last a minute. You might last 2. But eventually, biology wins. The survival system always wins when you fight it directly. The man who learns to protect his focus doesn't fight harder. He fights smarter. He doesn't try to resist the phone. He makes the phone irrelevant. He doesn't try to overpower his impulses. He removes the triggers that create them. He doesn't rely on willpower. He builds a system that works when his willpower is gone. Imagine a day where you wake up and your phone stays in another room for the first hour. You eat breakfast without checking anything. You plan your day before the world demands your attention. You sit down to work, and 45 minutes pass without you noticing. You finish a task completely before you even think about what's happening online. You feel tired, but it's the good kind of tired. The tired that comes from building, not from reacting. This day is possible, not because you became a different person overnight, but because you stopped expecting yourself to win a fight you were never designed to win. You stopped trusting your ability to resist and started trusting your ability to design. The survival system wants quick rewards, so you give it quick rewards for staying focused. After 45 minutes, you get to check your phone. After 2 sessions, you get a coffee. After a full morning of deep work, you get a real break. You're not denying the system. You're retraining it. You're teaching it that focus leads to reward, not distraction. Most people never experience this because they never protect their focus long enough to feel the difference. They live in a state of constant partial attention where everything is urgent and nothing is important. They're always available, always responsive, always connected, and always stuck. You don't have to live this way. You can build a different pattern. You can create a day where your attention belongs to you, not to your phone. You can finish a project without constantly checking what else might be happening. You can think deeply without feeling the itch to see what's new. It starts with 10 minutes, then 45, then a morning, then a day. The survival system learns faster than you think. It just needs consistent proof that waiting is safe, that focus is rewarding, that you're still in control, even when you're not checking. The day you decide to protect your focus is the day everything starts to change. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop consuming and start building. You stop waiting for motivation and start generating momentum. This is how you win the war for your attention, not by fighting harder, but by making the fight unnecessary. By designing a world where focus is the easiest choice, not the hardest one. By proving to your own brain that safety doesn't require distraction. That safety comes from finishing what you start. The world is built to steal your attention. Your future depends on whether you let it. Chapter 3. Finish what you start. Rewire the quitting circuit. You are on track for 3 weeks. Then day 22 feels pointless. You skip 1 day, then 3. The pattern repeats. This isn't just a setback. It's a biological program running exactly as it was designed to run. Every time you start something new, your brain lights up with possibility. The first days feel electric. You're making progress. You're seeing changes. You're telling yourself, this time is different. But somewhere between the second and third week, something shifts. The excitement fades. The progress slows. The work starts to feel like work. And that's when the survival system makes its final move. It doesn't attack you directly. It doesn't scream at you to quit. It whispers something far more dangerous. This isn't worth it. You're not getting anywhere. You should wait until you feel motivated again. That voice feels like wisdom. It feels like self-care. It feels like you're being honest with yourself about your limits. But it's not wisdom. It's a sophisticated form of self-sabotage that has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. The survival system doesn't just want to keep you safe. It wants to keep you efficient. In a world of scarce resources, wasting energy on a hunt that isn't paying off is a death sentence. So your brain is wired with a quit mechanism. If results don't come fast enough, if the reward isn't obvious, if the effort feels greater than the return, the system pulls the plug. It tells you to conserve your energy for something more promising. This made perfect sense for your ancestors. If they spent 3 weeks tracking an animal that kept getting away, the smart move was to quit and find easier prey. The individuals who kept chasing impossible goals starved. The ones who cut their losses survived. But you're not hunting animals. You're building skills. You're creating businesses. You're transforming your body. And these things don't reward you on a predictable schedule. They demand weeks, months, even years of effort before the payoff becomes visible. Your brain's quit mechanism is perfectly calibrated for a world that no longer exists. The pattern is always the same. You start strong. You hit the first wall. You push through. You hit the second wall. You start to question. You look for evidence that you're wasting your time. You find it everywhere because you're looking for it. You skip 1 day. You tell yourself you need rest. You skip another day. You tell yourself you'll make up for it. By day 30, you've quit. Not with a dramatic decision. Not with a conscious choice. You just stop showing up. This is why most people never finish anything that matters. They don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because their brain is too good at protecting them from the uncertainty of long-term effort. The man who learns to finish what he starts doesn't have more willpower. He doesn't have better genetics. He doesn't have a stronger character. He has a different relationship with the quit mechanism. He hears the same whispers. He feels the same doubts. He sees the same evidence that he's wasting his time. But he recognizes the voice for what it is. A safety feature that's misfiring. He understands that the urge to quit peaks right before a breakthrough. He knows that the feeling of pointlessness is actually a sign that he's pushing into territory his brain has never mapped before. He sees the desire to stop as evidence that he's doing something difficult enough to change him. This changes everything. When you stop interpreting the urge to quit as a message from your wiser self and start seeing it as a miscalibrated alarm system, you stop taking it seriously. You don't obey it. You don't argue with it. You just notice it and keep moving. The protocol is simple, but specific. First, commit to the 40-day rule. Research on habit formation shows that the brain doesn't fully automate a behavior until you've repeated it for at least 40 days. Before that, you're still in the zone where the quit mechanism is actively looking for reasons to shut you down. So you make a deal with yourself. You don't get to evaluate whether something is working until you've done it for 40 days straight. No matter what. No exceptions. This single rule eliminates the most dangerous part of the quit mechanism, its ability to convince you that you're wasting your time. You don't get to decide that until day 41. Until then, you're on autopilot. You show up because you said you would, not because you feel like it. Second, lower the bar to the floor. The quit mechanism activates when the effort feels too high, so you make the effort almost impossible to fail. Instead of writing 1,000 words, you write one sentence. Instead of an hour at the gym, you do 5 minutes. Instead of a full work session, you open the document and stare at it for 3 minutes. You make the action so small that the survival system can't argue it's a waste of energy. This seems ridiculous at first. How can 5 minutes change anything? But you're not doing 5 minutes to make progress. You're doing 5 minutes to prove to your brain that you can show up, even when you don't want to. You're rewiring the quit mechanism by giving it evidence that small efforts are safe. That consistency doesn't mean exhaustion. That showing up doesn't have to hurt. Third, track only one metric: days completed. Quality doesn't matter. Progress doesn't matter. How you felt about it doesn't matter. Just a simple yes or no. Did you do the thing? Yes. Check the box. The quit mechanism wants you to evaluate whether you're good enough. It wants you to look at your work and find flaws. It wants you to conclude that since your effort wasn't perfect, it wasn't worth doing. So you remove quality from the equation entirely. You're trying to be done far more than you're trying to be great. The man who masters finishing doesn't have perfect days. He has completed days. He doesn't always feel motivated. He doesn't always make progress. But he always shows up. And slowly, the quit mechanism learns. Showing up doesn't kill him. Consistency is safe. Finishing is survivable. By day 40, something shifts. The action starts to feel automatic. The resistance fades. The survival system stops screaming because it has 40 pieces of evidence that this behavior isn't dangerous. You've outlasted the mechanism. You've rewired the circuit. The breakthrough doesn't happen on day 41. It happens on day 63, or day 90, or day 120. When you suddenly realize you're not forcing yourself anymore. You're just doing it. It's who you are now. The quit mechanism is still there, but it's quiet. It whispers, and you barely hear it. You finish because that's what you do. Most people never experience this because they never make it past day 22. They never get to the part where the mechanism gives up. They quit right before the brain rewires itself. They stop right before the habit becomes identity. You don't have to make that mistake. You can decide right now that you're not allowed to evaluate until day 41. You can decide that your only job is to check the box. You can decide that finishing is non-negotiable. Not because you're disciplined, but because you understand the mechanism that's trying to stop you. The quit mechanism is strong, but it's not patient. It gives up if you outlast it. So outlast it. Imagine looking back at the last 40 days and seeing a perfect chain of check marks. You weren't perfect, but you refused to break the chain. You didn't feel like it. You didn't think you were making progress. You doubted yourself every step of the way. But you checked the box. And that's what made the difference. This is how you build a life you can trust. Not by making perfect decisions, but by proving to yourself that you can finish what you start. The quit mechanism will always be there. But you'll be the person who knows how to work around it. You'll be the person who finishes. Chapter 4. Speak the truth. Your survival brain wants to hide. You know what you need to say. You feel the words forming in your mind. But when the moment comes, they get stuck in your throat. So you nod. You smile. You stay silent. And you watch another piece of your future slip away because you couldn't say what needed to be said. This is how the survival system protects you from the biggest threat it can imagine: conflict. Your brain treats difficult conversations the same way it treats physical danger. The possibility of disagreement, rejection, or disapproval triggers the same alarm bells as stepping into oncoming traffic. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. Your mind goes blank. And you convince yourself that staying quiet is the smart, safe choice. But it's not safe. It's sabotage disguised as wisdom. The survival system doesn't care that your relationship is suffering because you won't address the real issues. It doesn't care that your career is stalled because you won't ask for what you deserve. It doesn't care that you're drowning in resentment because you won't set boundaries. It only cares that you avoid the immediate discomfort of speaking up. So you stay in the job that undervalues you because asking for a raise feels too risky. You keep quiet when someone crosses a line because setting a boundary might cause tension. You agree to plans you hate because saying no would disappoint someone. You let people take your time, your energy, and your self-respect because the alternative, the conversation where you draw the line, feels like a threat to your survival. The cost of this silence compounds. Every time you swallow your truth, you lose a little more trust in yourself. You start to believe you're the kind of person who can't speak up. You build an identity around accommodation. You become someone who waits for permission, someone who avoids confrontation, someone who lives according to other people's expectations. The survival system counts this as a victory. You stayed safe. You avoided conflict. You didn't risk rejection, but you also didn't build the life you want. You didn't protect your boundaries. You didn't claim your worth. You survived, but you didn't thrive. The man who learns to speak his truth doesn't become reckless. He doesn't pick fights or create drama. He simply stops letting fear edit his words. He understands that the discomfort of speaking up is temporary, but the cost of staying silent is permanent. He knows the first difficult conversation is always the hardest, because the survival system screams the loudest. It tells him he'll be fired, abandoned, hated, or humiliated. It shows him worst-case scenarios and convinces him they're guaranteed outcomes. So he doesn't try to overpower the fear. He works around it. He uses a simple script, one he practices until it becomes automatic. When someone asks him to do something he doesn't want to do, he says, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't take that on right now." No long explanation. No apology. No justification. Just the truth, delivered calmly. When he needs to address a problem, he starts with, "There's something I need to talk about, and it might be uncomfortable." This single sentence disarms the survival system because it names the discomfort up front. It tells his brain, "I see the threat, and I'm still walking toward it." When he needs to set a boundary, he says, "That doesn't work for me." He doesn't explain why. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't ask for permission. He just states what is true for him. The first time he does this, his hands shake. His voice cracks. The survival system floods his body with stress hormones. He feels like he's dying, but he survives. The conversation ends. Nothing catastrophic happens. He learns that speaking truth doesn't kill him. It just feels like it might. The second time is easier. The third time, he doesn't need to practice. By the 10th time, it's automatic. The survival system has learned that these conversations don't end in disaster. It stops treating them as threats. It stops hijacking his voice. He also learns to lower the stakes. He doesn't start with the biggest confrontation. He starts with the smallest truth. He tells a friend he doesn't want to see that movie. He tells a colleague he needs an extra day on the project. He tells his family he's not coming to dinner because he needs rest. Small truths build the muscle for bigger ones. The man who masters difficult conversations becomes dangerous to the old system. He can't be controlled by fear. He can't be manipulated by guilt. He can't be slowed down by the need for approval. He moves through the world with a kind of quiet power that terrifies people who rely on his silence. And he discovers something unexpected. Most people respect him more, not less. They trust him more because they know where he stands. They value his time more because he values it first. They treat him differently because he treats himself differently. The survival system never completely stops whispering, but it whispers to a man who no longer listens. He hears the fear, acknowledges it, and speaks anyway. He knows that the voice trying to protect him is the same voice that's been keeping him small. Your truth is the key that unlocks every door the survival system has locked. You don't need to find it. You already know it. You need to stop letting fear stop you from saying it. The conversation you've been avoiding is the conversation that will set you free. The boundary you've been scared to set is the boundary that will protect your future. The question you've been afraid to ask is the question that will change everything. You already know what you need to say. The only question is whether you'll let your survival system keep it trapped inside you. Chapter 5. You are not an imposter. You are under construction. You finally see progress. You're doing work you're proud of. People are starting to notice. And then a voice whispers, "You don't belong here. You're faking it. They're going to find out." So you slow down. You self-correct. Right into self-sabotage. You stop speaking up in meetings because your ideas suddenly feel unoriginal. You stop sharing your work because it feels like you're pretending. You shrink yourself back to a size that feels safe, familiar, and definitively not fraudulent. This is the survival system's final trick. It lets you climb halfway up the mountain, then convinces you that you stole the climbing gear. It gives you just enough success to trigger the alarm. You're not supposed to be here. This is dangerous. Get back down before they catch you. Most people never escape this trap because they believe the feeling is evidence. If you feel like an imposter, you must be one. If you feel unqualified, you must be unqualified. If you feel like you're faking it, you must be a fake. But feelings are not facts. And in this case, the feeling is actually a sign that you're doing something right. The survival system treats growth the same way it treats any uncertainty, as a threat. When you're operating at a level you've never reached before, your brain has no evidence that you're safe there. It has no stored memories of success at this altitude. All it knows is that you're outside the zone where you've proven you can survive. So it sounds the alarm. It fills you with doubt. It makes you feel like you're about to be exposed. And it does all this because it thinks it's protecting you from the risk of standing somewhere you might fall from. This is why imposter syndrome hits hardest. Right after a promotion, right after a breakthrough, right after you've publicly committed to something bigger than you've done before. The survival system doesn't sabotage you when you're failing. It sabotages you when you're winning. Because winning means you're climbing higher. And higher means more risk of falling. The man who learns to recognize this pattern stops taking the feeling seriously. He hears the voice, acknowledges it, and keeps climbing anyway. He understands that feeling like an imposter is actually proof that he's in the right place. If you're not feeling like an imposter, you're probably not growing. He also stops trying to prove himself. The survival system wants you to believe that if you could just be perfect enough, the feeling would go away. So you work harder. You over-prepare. You rehearse every possible scenario. You try to earn a feeling of legitimacy through flawless performance. But the feeling never leaves, because the feeling isn't about your performance. It's about your brain's inability to recognize that you're safe at this new level. The solution is counterintuitive. You stop trying to feel qualified and start building proof. Proof isn't a feeling. Proof is a record. It's a list of things you've done despite the doubt. It's evidence that you can handle more than your brain thinks you can. You build proof by doing the work badly. Yes, badly. You stop waiting until you feel ready. You stop rehearsing until it's perfect. You ship the project when it's 70% done. You speak up when your idea is half-formed. You apply for the position even though you meet only half the requirements. You stop trying to eliminate uncertainty and start proving that you can function inside it. The first time you do this, the survival system will scream. You'll feel exposed. You'll be certain everyone sees what a fraud you are. But nothing happens. No one exposes you. No one laughs. No one points out the flaws you're certain are visible. You survive. The second time, you'll still feel the fear, but it will be quieter. By the fifth time, you'll notice the feeling, roll your eyes at it, and move forward anyway. By the 10th time, you'll forget to check whether you feel like an imposter because you'll be too busy doing the work. You also need to change the story you tell yourself. The survival system wants you to say, "I'm not ready yet." You replace it with, "I'm under construction." Not ready means you need to wait. Under construction means you're building something real. And real things are messy while they're being built. You stop saying, "I don't know enough." You start saying, "I'm learning in public." You stop saying, "I feel like a fraud." You start saying, "I'm stretching into new territory." These aren't affirmations. They're accurate descriptions of what's actually happening. You're not faking it. You're making it, piece by piece, in front of witnesses. The man who masters imposter syndrome doesn't wait for confidence. He builds it by accumulating proof. He keeps a list of everything he's done while feeling like a fraud. The presentation he gave while shaking. The raise he asked for while terrified. The The project he shipped while certain it wasn't good enough. The list grows. The proof accumulates. And the feeling of fraudulence becomes irrelevant. Because the evidence of competence becomes undeniable. He also learns to separate his identity from his results. The survival system wants you to believe that if you fail, you are a failure. If you're exposed, you are worthless. So you protect yourself by shrinking. But you are not your results. You are your direction. You are the pattern of showing up despite the doubt. You are the willingness to be under construction publicly. This is the identity that can't be sabotaged. When you're the person who does the work while feeling like an imposter, the feeling loses its power. It becomes background noise. It's still there, but it doesn't drive the car anymore. The breakthrough comes when you catch yourself feeling like an imposter, and you smile. Because you know what that feeling means. It means you're exactly where you need to be. It means you're growing. It means the survival system is scared, and that's its problem, not yours. You don't need to eliminate the feeling. You need to outgrow it. You do that by building proof until the evidence is so overwhelming that even your survival system has to admit you belong here. You earn this. You're not an imposter. You're just earlier in the process than you will be later. Imagine looking back a year from now at the work you're doing today. You'll see the flaws. You'll see the gaps. But you'll also see that you were building something real, even while you felt like you were faking it. You'll be proud, not because you were perfect, but because you were under construction and you kept building anyway. This is the ultimate answer to imposter syndrome. You stop trying to feel legitimate, and you start building proof that you are. You stop waiting for confidence, and you start creating competence. You stop hiding, and you start performing while the scaffolding is still up. The feeling of being an imposter is the price of admission to the next level of your life. Everyone who gets there pays it. The difference is that some people listen to the feeling and retreat. Others hear it, recognize it as the cost of growth, and keep moving forward. You are not an imposter. You are under construction. The scaffolding is still up. The blueprint is still being drawn. And that's exactly what it looks like when you're building something that matters. Chapter 6. Build a system that works when you don't feel like it. Motivation will leave you. Discipline will fail you. There will be mornings when your bed feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds, and your goals feel like they belong to someone else. On those days, your survival system won't just whisper, it will scream. And if you're relying on how you feel, you'll lose. This is the moment that separates the person who changes from the person who stays the same. Not the day you feel inspired. Not the week when everything clicks. The day when you feel absolutely nothing, and you show up anyway. Most people build their lives on feelings. They work when they feel motivated. They exercise when they feel energized. They create when they feel inspired. Their entire system depends on a resource that disappears the moment they need it most. Feelings are unreliable. They're weather, not terrain. They change without warning. They can't be trusted to carry you through a storm. The survival system knows this. It waits for the moment when your feelings fade. It watches you build a routine based on inspiration. And it knows that inspiration has an expiration date. When that day comes, and it always comes, it doesn't have to fight you. It just has to let you stop. Because you never built anything that could work without your feelings. The man who builds a system that works when he doesn't feel like it understands. Feelings are data, not directives. They tell him he's tired. They tell him he's uninspired. They tell him he's uncertain. But they don't tell him what to do. He has a system for that. His system isn't complicated. It's a set of simple rules that remove choice when choice is dangerous. He doesn't decide whether to go to the gym. He decides where his gym clothes are laid out the night before. He doesn't decide whether to write. He decides what time the document opens on his computer. He doesn't decide whether to make the call. He decides which number is already dialed and waiting. The system works because it separates preparation from execution. When you feel good, you prepare. When you feel bad, you execute. The preparation creates a path of least resistance that even a depleted survival system can follow. Here's how you build it. First, stop asking yourself what you want to do today. Decide the night before. Make one decision when your prefrontal cortex is strong, and remove 1,000 decisions when it's weak. Lay out your clothes. Write the first sentence. Open the tab. Make the first move so small that starting feels easier than explaining why you didn't. Second, create environmental triggers that work while you sleep. Put the book you need to read on your keyboard. Set the coffee maker to start 5 minutes before your alarm. Place your running shoes in the doorway so you have to step over them. Make the right choice the default choice. And make the wrong choice require extra effort. Third, build accountability that doesn't depend on your mood. Tell one person what you're going to do. Send them a calendar invite. Agree on a consequence if you don't follow through. Not because you need punishment, but because you need a system that functions when your internal motivation is offline. The survival system wants to keep you comfortable, so you make discomfort familiar. You practice feeling bad while doing the work. You prove to yourself that exhaustion isn't a reason to stop. You build a tolerance for performing at 50% capacity, because 50% is infinitely better than zero. This is the difference between professionals and amateurs. Amateurs wait until they feel ready. Professionals show up because the schedule says so. Amateurs need inspiration. Professionals need a calendar. Amateurs believe their feelings are facts. Professionals know their feelings are weather. The man who masters this doesn't feel good all the time. He feels terrible and works anyway. He feels uninspired and creates anyway. He feels exhausted and moves anyway. He doesn't win because he's stronger. He wins because he built a system that doesn't require strength. Imagine a month where you didn't miss a single workout. Not because you felt motivated, but because your system made it easier to go than to skip. Imagine a quarter where you shipped a project every week. Not because you were inspired, but because your system made starting automatic. Imagine a year where you became the person you promised yourself you'd be. Not because you felt confident, but because your system worked when you didn't. This is possible not because you'll become someone who never gets tired, but because you'll become someone who has a plan for being tired. You'll have a routine for the days when you have no routine. You'll have a default setting that points toward growth, not comfort. The survival system will never stop trying to protect you from discomfort, but you'll be the person who has a system for moving forward while feeling uncomfortable. You'll be the person who knows that waiting for motivation is like waiting for perfect weather. If you wait, you'll never do anything. You build this system one piece at a time. You don't overhaul your entire life overnight. You pick one behavior. You design the environment. You remove the decisions. You make it so easy that you can't fail. And then you let the system run long enough that it becomes who you are. After a while, you won't remember what it felt like to wait for motivation. You'll just remember that you have a system, and the system works. You'll trust it the way you trust gravity. You won't debate it. You won't question it. You'll just lean into it and let it carry you forward. The day you stop trusting your feelings and start trusting your system is the day everything changes. You stop being a victim of your own moods and start being the architect of your own life. You stop waiting for inspiration and start building a life that doesn't need it. Your future doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on what you do when you feel nothing. Build a system that works in the dark. Build a system that works when you're tired. Build a system that works when you've forgotten why you started. Because the days you don't feel like it are the days that count the most. Chapter 7. The Compound Effect of Decisions. You want the breakthrough. You want the moment when everything clicks, when your efforts finally pay off. When you can look back and say, that was the day it all changed. So you search for the big decision, the massive action, the single choice that will transform everything. But breakthroughs don't work that way. They're not born from giant leaps. They're built from tiny steps that compound so slowly you barely notice them. Until one day, you can't ignore the mountain you've built. The survival system doesn't understand compounding. It was designed for a world where rewards were immediate. You either caught the animal or you starved. You either found shelter or you froze. There was no such thing as a small daily investment that paid off a year later. So your brain discounts the future. It treats tomorrow like a fantasy and today like the only reality that matters. This is why you skip the workout, eat the junk food, blow off the project. Because the immediate reward feels real, and the future benefit feels like a lie. You tell yourself that to feel better about being lazy. The math of compounding is simple, but brutal. Improve by just 1% every day, and you're not 365% better in a year. You're 3,778% better. 37 times better. This isn't motivational fluff. This is exponential mathematics. And it works in both directions. Get 1% worse every day, and you don't just decline, you decay. You don't fall off a cliff. You erode until the foundation collapses. Most people are eroding. They're making small choices that feel harmless in the moment. One skipped workout, one fast food meal, 1 hour of scrolling, 1 day of not working on the project. Each choice feels microscopic. Each choice feels justified. Each choice feels like it costs nothing. But they're all compounding. They're all being multiplied by time. And the life you end up with is the product of daily decisions you thought didn't matter. The survival system encourages this erosion. Because immediate comfort feels like survival. It whispers that you can start tomorrow. It tells you that 1 day off won't hurt. It convinces you that you'll make up for it later. And because each individual choice seems so small, you believe it. You don't see the compound effect until it's too late. You wake up a year later and wonder how you got so far from where you wanted to be. You didn't fail dramatically. You eroded microscopically. The man who masters the compound effect stops looking for dramatic moments. He stops waiting for motivation to create a massive push. He stops believing in breakthroughs and starts believing in bricks. He knows that every big result is just a pile of tiny actions that became inevitable through repetition. He makes the small choice easy. He doesn't try to write 1,000 words. He writes 1 sentence. He doesn't try to run 5 miles. He puts on his shoes. He doesn't try to build a business. He sends 1 email. He makes the action so small that the survival system can't argue against it. It's not worth the energy to fight something that takes less than 1 minute. Then he tracks the chain. He marks an X on a calendar every day he does the thing. Not because the X matters, but because the chain does. After 7 days, the chain has power. After 30 days, breaking it feels like actual loss. After 90 days, the chain is stronger than his feelings. He shows up because the chain is unbroken, not because he feels like it. He also learns to value boredom. The survival system wants stimulation. It wants novelty. It wants immediate feedback. But compound growth is boring. It's the same action repeated when nothing seems to be changing. It's putting money in an account that doesn't grow for months. It's lifting the same weight that feels exactly as heavy as last week. It's writing another page that seems just as bad as the one before. The man who compounds embraces this boredom. He knows that the lack of visible progress is actually proof that the process is working. The growth is happening beneath the surface, in the roots where it can't be seen yet. He measures time, not results. He commits to showing up for 1 year before he evaluates whether it's working. This feels insane to the survival system. It feels like flying blind. But it's the only way to let compounding work. If you judge too early, you quit before the curve turns upward. Every exponential graph looks flat at the beginning. The man who compounds understands. Flat is the price of admission. Imagine what happens when you trust this process. You write 1 sentence a day for 1 year, and you have a book. You save a small amount every week, and you have an emergency fund. You make 1 sales call daily, and you have a pipeline. You improve 1 tiny process weekly, and you have a competitive advantage. None of these actions feel impressive in the moment. None of them feel like breakthroughs. But they all compound into inevitability. The survival system will never applaud small actions. It will always push for the big gesture, the dramatic effort, the all-or-nothing sprint. Because sprints end. And when they end, you can go back to comfort. But compounding never ends. It just keeps building. It turns small into significant, consistent into unstoppable, boring into brilliant. Your future isn't determined by what you do when you feel motivated. It's determined by what you do when you feel nothing. It's determined by the sentence you write when you have no ideas. It's determined by the workout you do when you're exhausted. It's determined by the healthy meal you cook when you want to order pizza. These are the bricks. These are the atoms. These are the 1% improvements that become 37 times returns. The day you stop chasing breakthroughs and start laying bricks is the day your future becomes inevitable. You won't notice the change at first. The chain will feel like a silly ritual. The small actions will feel like a waste of time. The boredom will feel like you're doing it wrong. But something is happening beneath the surface. The foundation is being poured. The roots are growing. The compound effect is working. One day you'll look up and realize you're not the same person. You're 37 times better. Not because you had a breakthrough, but because you stopped waiting for one. Chapter 8. Your new operating system. You have spent your whole life trying to fight yourself. You called it laziness. You called it lack of discipline. You called it a character flaw. Every failure felt personal. Every broken promise felt like proof that there was something wrong with you. Now you know the truth. The problem was never that you were broken. The problem was that you were running an operating system that was never designed for the life you want. Your survival system was built for a world of cold nights and empty stomachs, not for a world of long projects and invisible results. It was built to keep you safe, not to make you fulfilled. It was built to avoid discomfort, not to transform you through it. It has done its job perfectly. It kept you alive. It kept you comfortable. It kept you the same. That system is still there. It will always be there. You cannot delete it. You cannot uninstall it. You cannot rewrite millions of years of wiring with a few weeks of motivation. But you can do something far more powerful. You can install a second operating system on top of it. You have already started. You learn to notice the switch. That moment when the urge appears. When your hand reaches for the phone. When your brain whispers that you are tired, bored, or stuck. You learn to see it not as a personal failure, but as a safety protocol activating. You stopped asking, "What is wrong with me?" and started asking, "What is my survival system trying to protect me from?" You learned to protect your focus instead of trusting it. You redesigned your environment so distraction is harder and deep work is easier. You moved your phone. You set timers. You created small windows of protected attention that your survival system could tolerate. You stopped trying to be stronger than your impulses and started making your impulses irrelevant. You learned to finish what you start. You stopped letting your brain convince you to quit on day 20 when results were still invisible. Every failure felt personal. Every broken promise felt like proof that there was something wrong with you. Now you know the truth. The problem was never that you were broken. The problem was that you were running an operating system that was never designed for the life you want. Your survival system was built for a world of cold nights and empty stomachs, not for a world of long projects and invisible results. It was built to keep you safe, not to make you fulfilled. It was built to avoid discomfort, not to transform you through it. It has done its job perfectly. It kept you alive. It kept you comfortable. It kept you the same. That system is still there. It will always be there. You cannot delete it. You cannot uninstall it. You cannot rewrite millions of years of wiring with a few weeks of motivation. But you can do something far more powerful. You can install a second operating system on top of it. You have already started. You learn to notice the switch. That moment when the urge appears. When your hand reaches for the phone. When your brain whispers that you are tired, bored, or stuck. You learn to see it not as a personal failure, but as a safety protocol activating. You stopped asking, "What is wrong with me?" and started asking, "What is my survival system trying to protect me from?" You learned to protect your focus instead of trusting it. You redesigned your environment so distraction is harder and deep work is easier. You moved your phone. You set timers. You created small windows of protected attention that your survival system could tolerate. You stopped trying to be stronger than your impulses and started making your impulses irrelevant. You learned to finish what you start. You stopped letting your brain convince you to quit on day 20 when results were still invisible. The old system says, "Stay quiet, keep the peace, do not rock the boat." The new system says, "Say what is true, even if your voice shakes." The old system says, "You do not belong here." The new system says, "You are under construction, and this is what building looks like." You will still have days when you lose, days when you scroll, days when you skip, days when you stay silent, days when you break the chain. That does not mean the system is gone. That does not mean you are back at zero. It means you are human, running two operating systems at once. The difference now is that you know how to reboot. You know how to return to small actions instead of dramatic promises. You know how to lower the bar until progress becomes possible again. You know how to speak one sentence of truth when a whole speech feels impossible. You know how to start another chain when the old one breaks. you also know what is at stake. This is not just about productivity. It is not just about money or fitness or career. It is about whether you spend the rest of your life working against yourself or working with the brain you actually have. If you keep obeying the old operating system, you will stay safe and comfortable and unchanged. You will die with potential still locked inside you, not because you lack talent, but because you let fear run the machine. If you commit to the new one, you will still feel fear. You will still feel doubt. You will still feel the urge to run back to comfort. But you will move anyway. You will build anyway. You will speak anyway. You will finish anyway. You do not need to become someone else. You need to stop letting the oldest part of you decide what the rest of you is allowed to do. You need to stop giving your survival system the final vote on your future. From this point forward, every decision you make runs through a new question. Is this my survival system talking, or is this my future self speaking? The survival system will choose comfort. Your future self will choose growth. The survival system will choose silence. Your future self will choose truth. The survival system will choose quitting on day 20. Your future self will choose day 40 and beyond. The survival system will choose the couch. Your future self will choose the small action that keeps the chain alive. You get to decide who wins that argument. Not once, not twice, every single day. This is your new operating system. Notice the pattern. Protect your focus. Finish what you start. Speak your truth. Act while you feel like an imposter. Trust your system. And let time multiply what you do today. You will not feel ready. You are not supposed to. You are under construction. And that is exactly where you need to be. Start the first small action now. Not next week. Not next month. This moment. One decision that your future self would be proud of. Then another tomorrow. Then another after that. The world will not change for you. Your brain will not magically rewrite itself. But your actions can carve a new path through both. You are done working against yourself. It is time to see what happens when all that energy finally starts working for you. Thank you for listening to Read Great Minds. If this message described your life even a little, take one small action today, just one. Protect your attention. Keep the chain alive. Outlast the old programming. If you found value here, like the video, subscribe to the channel Read Great Minds, and share it with someone who keeps getting stuck at the starting line. And comment below. Which chapter hit you the hardest? Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. This is Read Great Minds.